In the last follow along, we saw how to make sketches, we explored some of the commands with sketches, and today we are going to use that skill and make some 3D models. So I'll be showing you some of the commands that are there for making 3D CAD, and some of them, if are not covered, you can explore yourself, or you can come to me and I'll show you. But we'll cover most of the important ones anyways. So how we are going to do from now on in the follow along videos is that we'll take an engineering drawing and we'll try to replicate that. So for today, let's say we've got this. We've actually got three CAD models that we need to make. So you should be able to understand an engineering drawing first, and there's a video in the resource list on the Now Learning Room that you can refer. But as already discussed in the lectures, you should know by now that this is an orthographic view of the 3D model that we are going to make. This is the top view, front view, and the side view. Okay, so we can see that dimensions are already provided. Some dimensions are in other views, and not all dimensions are in every view. So we need to understand how every view is related to each other. So to make this, there is no specific way or a direction that go that you have to go in. Essentially, for every CAD model, it's different, and so will be different for this one as well. So let's do one thing. Let's make a plan how we are going to approach this. And it's good to make a small plan in your mind. You don't need to discuss it with anyone. It's basically the processing that goes on in your mind when you're actually designing. So an easy way of designing this model, and that's how we are going to make it as well, would be to make this ledge and just extrude it straight, then make this L shape, extrude it straight, make a circle, make that hole. So those are some like 6 steps that we can follow and very quickly make this model. So let's go and make the first one, and then maybe you will have a better understanding of what I mean when I said that let's make a small plan. So I'll just show, and the first step, what essentially I meant is let's make this bridge shape. For that, we know that we can use sketch if you have made a shortcut. Like for example, in the last uh, tutorial, we assigned a shortcut for sketch as K, so we can come back to Fusion, press K, select any of the views, but let's say that we are selecting side view, so let's select that. Let's make a rectangle of the dimensions that are given to us. So let's make a random rectangle for now, assign the dimensions. So you can check in the drawing that this dimension, this width is 14. So we can come back here, assign this to be 14, go back, check the dimension for the top, and you can see that that dimension is not clearly provided here, but you can uh, assume, not even assume, you can find out how much it is. So if half of it is 14, double of it would be 28. But just to be sure, you can check that in the top view, it's actually mentioned as well that it is 28. So let's give this as 28. Yep. Now we just need to make a small cutout at the bottom in the center. So to do that, let's make a center line first, and we'll try and use the shortcuts shortcuts as much as we can. One thing I want you to notice now here is that as you move your cursor along this edge, you can see around the midpoint, or actually at the very midpoint, you see this triangle, which basically tells that this is the midpoint. So you can actually just make a center line just by following the snap point, and it should exactly be half of it. Let's make it as a construction line because it's not actually a part of our design. Let's make a rectangle. Again, we need to check the dimensions. So let's quickly go there. Uh, Again, we need to check the dimensions. So let's quickly go there. So this cutout is 14 in length and 7 in height. So let's give the height as 7. So you can see I just press tab to go to the other dimension, and this one, just think how much will it be, because the total has to be 14, so this should be 7 again. And then we can mirror the square, right? Because we learned that we can actually mirror the lines. So if we just select these two lines, select this mirror line, we should be able to get that cutout. And now remember, we learned a command called trim, so we can just press T and remove the lines that we don't actually need, right? So you can see that we've got the ledge that we were aiming for. And let's now finally go ahead and make our first 3D model. So we'll finish the sketch. We'll zoom out a little bit, maybe orient ourselves so that we can see that it's standing and it's a side view. And so we can see that it's a side view, and let's go and see how long we have to extrude it for. So you can see that the total length is 50. So let's go ahead and extrude it for that dimension. Okay, so the first command for 3D modeling, which is the one that I think you will be using the most, is called extrude. So how we do it? Again, we go to the create part as we had in Sketch also. So we have the similar command, not similar commands. I mean, we have commands at the same place in 3D. So you can see the first one is extrude. The shortcut is E. So let's try and use the shortcut. Let's press E, and it's asking us to select the profile because there's only one profile. It has selected it itself, but you actually have to click on the profile, and we can see that we can only click on it because it's a closed figure. We've talked about closed sketches as well, so it needs to be a closed edge sketch. So it needs to be a closed sketch. So let's click on this sketch, select it. And now before we go ahead and extrude, I want to show you the different options that we have here. So we have option like thin extrude, which you can explore yourself, but like proper extrude, let me show you that. So profile is basically the region that we want to extrude, and from now on we call it profile. Then we can select where do we want to start the extrusion from, and extrusion just means linearly dragging and making it 3D, which you will see. So let's keep it profile plane for now, but we can offset it to a certain distance and then start extruding, or we can start extruding for us from a specific surface as well. We'll see those eventually when we make other models, but it's just good to know that there are some other options as well. Then there is something like if you want to just extrude in one direction, as this arrow shows, then you can extrude it in both directions as well with different dimensions, or you can make it symmetric. Let's do one thing, let's make it symmetric, okay? So that we can just see how it works. Then in symmetric, we can actually define the whole length, which we want, which we know is 50 in this case, or we can define half of the length and then it will just measure the other one because it's symmetrical. Then we have to specify the distance, which will be 25 if we are using the half length, or 50 if we are using the whole length. Let's do that. Let's assign 50 here, zoom out so that you can actually see. And before actually putting the value, I want to show you that we can drag it ourselves as well, and we can see it growing. And you don't necessarily have to put the value there. You can put the value here as well. So let's put it 50. And you can see that we've got that um, table or the bridge, whatever you want to call it for now. Let's see what happens if we change the taper angle. So let's give it 10, okay? And you can see that it has started to also taper the edges and not just extrude it. And this will be useful in some of the cases. We can also do negative angles if we want it to become smaller eventually. Obviously, after certain distance, the angle becomes so large that it intersects itself, and you can sometimes get errors as well if the surface intersects itself, which Fusion really doesn't like. So to show you better, maybe if I just change the distance to 10 or 20 for now, we can see how the edges contract, but that's not what we're looking for. So let's make it correct what we wanted. One very important thing that we want to see whenever we do a 3D command is what actually we are trying to do. So do we want to make a new body? Do we want to make a new component? Or do we want to do one of join, cut, or intersect? Don't worry about these, the first three for now. Let's keep it on new body, but we will see what these mean. So let's just make a new body. And now we can see that we've got an edge of the correct dimensions that we were looking for. Next thing that we want is to make this L shape extrusion on the top. So let's go ahead and do that. And Now, maybe this will give you a better idea of what these lines are, but we'll see in the end if our 3D that we have made and it's, let's say, the wireframe, just to compare it, we will see if it looks similar to the views. We can actually view the shaded lines as well as we saw. So we'll check that, but let's go ahead and make this L shape and the circle. Yeah, okay. So let's minimize this. So we are going to now start another sketch. We can just press K. And now we know that we need a new plane to work on. And we can actually work on the bottom plane as well, which was the origin plane. And if sometimes some things are in your way, you can just hide them. So whatever 3D models you make, they will appear in your tree in bodies, and the sketches that we made will appear in sketches. So I can just turn this on and off using this, or I can actually select the body and press a shortcut for view and hide, which is V. Okay, so V is the shortcut for making things visible and invisible. Okay, let's keep it visible for now. Start a new sketch. And because we need a new plane and we know that we are making something from on top of this edge, let's select the surface. And now let's start making that L shape and the circle that we needed. Let's make the circle first. Let's make a circle anywhere. We know that the diameter of that is 14, but we have to see that the distance of the center from the edges, how much it is specifically. So it is 14 from the side edge and also 14 from the front edge, right? So let's use constraints now, right? And mark that distance. Actually, we can just use the dimensions as well. So let's select the center point and this edge, make this 14, and also we need this distance as 14, right? So our circle should move in the correct place by its own. Let's see what are the dimensions for the L. So the longer edge is 21. Then we have another edge which is 14. So you can keep checking the dimensions everywhere. And let's just go ahead and draw it now. So we can use the line command. So we are drawing over here 21. Then we are continuing from here, coming down 14 and the one 7, I think. And the last one we don't even need to measure because it's just a closed figure. So now you can see that these are closed figures and we have circle and our L shape. Let's go ahead and finish the sketch. So we are just one step, actually 2 steps away from finishing our model. So let's just extrude again this L shape that we wanted on the top. Think about how much high it is. So even if it is not clearly mentioned, we know that it is 28 from the bottom surface. So even though we don't know how high it is from the top surface, we can use this command, right? So let's click on this. Let's press E for extrude. And now what we can do is that instead of starting it from this plane, we can start it from the bottom plane. Yeah. So we can just revolve, click on the bottom edge. And if we start to pull from here, we can see that it starts subtracting that red thing that you're seeing. It actually means that it is cutting the surface, and that you can also see from the type of operation it is trying to perform. So what do we want here? We actually either want to join it or we want to make a new body. So let's make a new body. Okay. And let's make the total height 28. I think that is what it was. Yeah, correct. And there you go. We've got the L that we needed, but it is still a different body. There was another way to just make it very simply and measure the distance just from the surface, which was 14. Many of you can just simply do it, but I deliberately did it from the bottom so that I can show you another command, which is called combine in Fusion. where you can join two bodies together, and that combine is actually a Boolean operation, which we discussed in lecture, that we have different types of Boolean operation in math as well, and the same concepts apply in CAD. So we can either join two bodies, or we can cut two bodies, or we can also intersect two bodies. So let's try and so we know that we want to join them here, but let's try and explore all of them so that you have a good idea. Okay. So let's see what options do we get when we click on combine. So to go to combine, you go on modify and you find combine and click on that. So there are two things that we need to select, a target body and a tool body. So the target body is the main body that we want to perform the operation on, even if it's joining. So we want to join something to the first body. So let's select that as the target body, and our tool body is the L that we just made. So let's select that. And now what you can see that Fusion will try to combine both the bodies, make it a single body, right? We can keep the tool if we want. If we actually want to use it further for other things, we can keep it as it is as a separate body and still make sure that it's connected to the main body. But for now, we'll just remove it. And let's press OK and see what happens. We'll come back and explore the other Boolean operations as well. So now you can see if you rotate around that our L has got connected, but there's something still wrong because we want a hollow from the bottom, right? So there are a couple of ways to fix that, but let's just quickly come back to combine, do undo, and see what are the other things that we can do with Boolean operation. So instead of combining or joining two bodies, we can actually cut the two bodies. And if I do that, we will only be left with the blue part that you can see, or we can actually intersect it. And what we will be left with is whatever their common solid that they're sharing is. Okay, so right now we obviously we want join, so we will go back and do that. Okay, so let's fix this. And in this case, what we can simply do is select that surface, use extrude again, and pull it all the way back. And we can see that we can very easily cut what we made by mistake, and we want to get rid of that. So let's just extrude and cut that. Great. An easier way of doing it would have been just to extrude it from this surface for the dimensions we wanted, but I wanted to show you the Boolean operations. Okay, so we've got one more thing to do in this one, and then we'll start the second one, and that is making the circle. So one thing you can notice is that once we do extrude, the sketch uh, becomes invisible itself. So we can make it visible by using V. As we saw, we can go and click on the eye, and we just have to make that hole, and it's very easy, we know that, right? So we can use extrude again and extrude it all the way through, and that is it essentially, I think. So if we press OK, so now you can see that while extruding, I didn't even give a dimension because I just pulled it because I know that I want to go all the way through, so I can remove all the material under it. So let's just quickly check the views and see if these are correct. Okay, so let's look at the top view. Also, you can rotate the views. So it looks like this. And just to make sure, let's hide the sketch and turn on the hidden edges. Okay, there you go. So let's compare it to what we wanted to make. Let me bring it up this side. And it's a good idea to always compare and see if we have made exactly what we wanted. So the top view looks pretty much how we wanted it. Let's check the front view. Front view looks correct. The only thing that's not visible is the edges because of the circle, but that is something that Fusion doesn't show. It doesn't show edges for the curved surfaces. That's why it's not visible, but we are sure that this hole is there. It will be there when later we ex it will be there later when we see how to make drawings in Fusion. Then you will be able to see those lines as well. And let's quickly see the front view. Sorry, the side view. Let's quickly see the side view now. There you go. That looks correct, right? Again, the lines from the circle are not there. That's why you cannot see that. And the center line. Well done. Okay, so if you've been able to follow along, very good. This is how it looks from the side view.